We take our first look at the Tesla Model X. We also talk about fuel economy ratings for GM's crossover SUVs, as well as the new GMC Acadia. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody, and welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Muchler.
I'm Gabe Shanhar.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
Well, we've gotten a chance to drive a Tesla Model X. This one's a press car. We're going to have ours in, what, probably a month or two?
Probably a month, yeah, mid-June or so. So very interesting experience. I mean, it's very, things are very familiar about it because of the Model S, but you sit high, and yet, it's not like a top-heavy SUV kind of feeling, but that openness, I mean, the windshield that extends from the regular place to like half the roof, basically gives you such a feeling of you're like just in a futuristic canopy that's so airy and open. It's really something.
No, it's very much this amusement park like ride where you can look all the way up and overhead. I think there's pros and cons to that in some ways, but it can kind of say that about the whole car, can't we?
Or on about every car.
Well, you can.
There's more polarization here, perhaps, on this car. Maybe not quite enough polarization in the windscreen. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Here's my first take on it was this. When the Model S came out, I was really taken by the Model S because when we tested it, it was kind of back in the time when Fisker came out, right? And Fisker was kind of, to a lot of people, I mean, they said Fisker and Tesla, Fisker and Tesla. They were, everyone used them in the same sentence. But it wasn't fair because Fisker was really all flash and not the substance, whereas Tesla had a lot of substance and not a whole lot of gimmick on these cars. I mean, it really was very functional. Tesla Model S, I know we're supposed to talk about this one, but it was very roomy. I mean, they didn't compromise the interior packaging. It's a lift back. They had a front trunk. I mean, there was so much functionality with it that they didn't just say, okay, we're going to compromise it for gimmicks, like the Fisker did. Now you go look at the Model X, and there's a lot of things on it which I feel is kind of like, it works really good to like show off to your friends. I mean, certainly the Falcon doors, I mean, they're great to say, I mean, again, I'm picking up my kids from school, dropping off on kids. My 7-year-old boys, my 7-year-old and my 12-year-old, they think it's the coolest thing ever. But does it really make the car better? Does it really add a lot of complexity in motors and a lot of things? And there's so many things about this car that I just feel like they've kind of, jumped the shark a little bit, where they've kind of like gone from, let's just make a totally functional, really logical vehicle to here's some, gimmicks to kind of show off your friends. The doors, the front doors. Everyone talks about the Falcon doors, right? The front doors, you walk up to it, and it automatically opens the door for you. It gets
well, that's
in.
because the door handles, they're flush with the outer body, and unlike the Model S, they don't pop out. You push them in, and then the door pops open.
Right. I mean,
there's nothing to
grab on. But and then you go in there and you press the brake, and it automatically closes. That is really neat. Again, if I was a 12-year-old boy, I'd be like, that's awesome. The truth is that I could get into a Honda Civic and open the door and close it, and that works just fine. And when I walk up to this car...
And quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot quicker.
You walk up to this car, and I feel like an idiot. Like, I'll wait for my door to sense me and open me.
Right. This one, I push the door, it pops open a little bit. It doesn't pop open enough. You have to stop it before it hits the car next to you. Sometimes it's not open enough, so then you have to wrench it open. Just so many things about this car feel like a folly. And that's what I'm really bothered by. Yeah, the basics are fine. It's a Model S platform, the Model S.
Which is very impressive.
That stuff is all great. The car drives fine. Actually, the car drives better than fine. It's a very sporty driving SUV.
Absolutely.
It's just, there are so many gimmicks here. It feels like Detroit in the 50s, which is probably the last thing they wanted to channel, but it does. It's so much flash. This car is so overthought when it comes to these doors.
I mean, some of it has functionality. I mean, the door...
It's justification, I think.
Well, because it opens with part of the roof, so there's less ducking, but...
There's not a lot of ducking into a normal crossover SUV.
Exactly. A Highlander, I could put a child seat in very easily.
I'll just say, ain't nobody got time for that,
Well, again, it's overthought. The door sense. There's a ton of sensors in the door, so
you want to get in. Who has the patience for this to come up?
Well, there's a ton of sensors in the door, so you don't dent the aluminum against whatever is overhead, or it doesn't, whack you in the bottom of the chin. So if you're standing too close to it, it stops, and then it's like a normal SUV with the power lift gate, where you kind of have to wrench it open sometimes because it's not open enough, and it's just but it goes beyond that. Some of the basic packaging of this car doesn't make sense. The second row seats are these monopod seats that are on just sort of a single pod, and they look like the commander's chair on Star Trek. They're this one-piece shell. There's not a lot of legroom in the second row. There's not a lot of legroom in the third row. The second row seats don't fold flat.
Yeah, they don't fold flat. So ultimate cargo capacity is going to be really skimpy compared to another SUV.
Right. We did this yesterday. We parked it next to our P85D or Model S. There is more room for a bike lengthwise.
A lot more. I mean, I've taken my mountain bike with you get with 29-inch wheels. You open up the Model S, you fold down the second row, and there's tons and tons of room. You go with this because those the second row seats they don't even, they do this.
Yeah.
They don't even kind of slide down at all. So you wind up you can't even fit really a 29-inch mountain bike in there without taking the wheel off.
And that's the problem. The sedan hatchback version of this car has more utility than the sport utility.
Right.
There's more cargo length inside. You can't put a roof rack on this because of
I could put it on the Model S.
You can put it on the Model S. The Model S has roof rack mounts. This doesn't. This can tow 5,000 pounds, but come on. The range is going to be cut
there is
a
a hitch
lot.
for these kind of things for skis and bikes.
For skis and bikes, but not kayaks.
But I mean,
look,
you could put a hitch on a Miata. I mean, a roof rack has more functionality very often than just putting something on a hitch. And again, range anxiety is always a thing when you're driving an electric car. And sure, it has a very long range, but yeah, if you're towing.
That's almost every normal car, fuel economy is cut by about half when you tow.
So
now
then,
I'm down to just about 100 miles with this.
Okay, and they're superchargers, but if you're towing,
I can't. I basically have to unhitch the trailer, park at the supercharger, charge, go back, rehitch, and tow away.
It all depends on how the superchargers are set up. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Depending on how they're set up, you may not be able to get there with
maybe I can take my boat to a boat ramp that's 20, 30 miles away from my house. There are situations where this might
I think
work,
they should add a mode to the summon feature. Rehook my trailer.
That would be technology.
They
that's
may be
really
working on
helpful.
it.
Also the back of those second row seats, it's piano black. It's really glossy, but any cargo you put in the back that scratches against that's not going to look really good.
So
there's a lot of
it's very attractive if you look at it in architectural terms or interior design. It's very slick, very attractive. But yes, I agree, it compromises functionality.
It's the Apple showroom school of interior design. Yeah. It's not the BMW 7 Series Audi interior design. This is comparatively stark inside compared to what you typically get for $100,000 from one of the European luxury brands.
Right, yeah. I'll say another thing. Also, when you just look at it, because of the placement of the door handles, the rear door handles, it comes across visually more like a minivan than an SUV. Had they placed those rear door handles in the rear of the door, I think it would be more visually appealing.
I could see that.
To me, it's kind of like an overgrown Prius, the shape of it. It's kind of like that kind of overgrown egg. But
there's something I really wanted to go back to. A big draw of electric cars. And when Tesla first came and talked to us, they made this whole thing about, look, you have an electric car that you don't have all the moving parts of an engine. You have batteries, a couple motors. You basically have an aluminum body. This thing can last a long time. It's really simple. There's not a lot of moving parts. So they've taken that quota of moving parts and they've put them in these doors.
Sure.
They've
all the doors, right? I mean, there's so many electric motors in this thing. Every seat that folds or moves, it's all electric motors. The front doors have electric motors, and you're exactly right. So, originally when we had tested the Model S, and we originally got reliability information on it, it was actually average. It seems that as they've added that complexity to the platform, things are getting worse. So, our data shows that the latest models have the most problems. There's more complexity, more things on them, and as they add to this is a problem. I mean, even the early ones, exactly. I mean, they were pretty simple. I mean, we initially said electric cars as a whole are pretty reliable, and they were, because they were pretty simple. In fact, the original Model S, I mean, kind of the only gimmick electric thing is those door handles, which kept on breaking.
That's right.
But powertrain-wise, it's pretty simple. Now they're not so simple. Right, now they've added all that complexity to just about everything about this car.
But I think maybe the biggest thing that I think about with this car is that, does anyone care anymore? Since they introduced the Model 3, since you have something like 375,000 pre-orders for that car, is the Model X just sort of this asterisk that just, I mean, it helps them generate more money to develop the Model 3.
I mean, don't underestimate the whole aura that's built around the Tesla name and the Tesla brand. So I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss it. I think there are a lot of loyal, it's like a cult following that the Tesla brand has, and
you just have to collect every playing card, basically. So you
yeah,
have to get everyone they make.
Gotta catch them all.
I can see people just it's okay. I had the Model S, now I want the Model X.
I actually, it's interesting what you're talking about, because maybe it's just a flagship. So I mean, you look at a lot of car companies, right? They don't sell a lot of BMW 7 Series or Mercedes-Benz S classes. They don't sell a lot of the flagships, the high-end model. So maybe the point of this is just kind of the test bed. Make this the high-end one. This thing I think stickers 150 grand or something.
Yeah,
this one, what we have right here. Put all this crazy stuff on this, see what sticks, and then we can learn from that and trickle down to the Model.
But then again,
Model 3.
to the point of Mercedes and BMW, they sell a lot of X5s. And they sell a lot of, what is it now, GLS?
Yeah, but this is not that. They're not 150
yeah.
grand. I mean, this is their flagship, and that X5 is not the BMW flagship. And BMW, Mercedes-Benz, they try stuff out on 7 Series.
You're right. They try it out on lower volume cars.
Right, exactly.
Let's not
screw
another
up
thing
the
not
S
to
or
underestimate
the
is that insatiable appetite for SUVs in this market, and then it's also a worldwide phenomenon. So
maybe, but it's a little too close to a minivan. You said.
But when they trickle down to less expensive models, versions of the Model X, maybe a shorter battery, maybe less features, it might gain volume.
But I think what it is, it's the Model 3 sport version. It's the Model 3 SUV version. I think that probably is what this thing is all about. It's, there's everyone's seen the Model 3 now, but there will be they talk about having an SUV version of that. And I think this is what they're going to learn on here, and things that worked and things that didn't work, they're going to find out. I mean, that windshield, that is the most striking thing. That does not have to be on a $150,000 car. I mean, you could put a windshield like that on a Ford Focus.
Sure.
And some European brands have actually incorporated that. And that is a striking thing when you get in the car. So let's see what customers think about it.
Right.
Let's add it.
Let's talk about a more normal SUV. GM has changed the fuel economy numbers on some of their large, they're called Lambda platforms, some of the Buick Enclave, the Chevy Traverse, the GMC Acadia. It used to be the Saturn Outlook, but that's gone now. They've changed some fuel economy numbers on those, and it raises more questions than it answers, doesn't it?
That's right. So it's kind of, the story keeps on changing. Initially, they said there was basically a misprint on some window stickers.
For 2016.
For 2016. They started putting these things out about
07, 08.
07, 08. And so they said it was a misprint. Now I think they're saying it's miscalculation, but they lowered the fuel economy up to 2 miles per gallon on these things, which is over 10%. When you have low fuel economy, you lose 2 miles per gallon.
We're talking 16 and 18 miles per gallon.
Exactly. Yeah. So what that means is quite a bit of difference in terms of fuel costs. So I think we asked the question as soon as this came out. It's like, well, wait, there's got to be more to the story. So
because they changed the numbers only on the 2016 cars, but in the last year of a model run, you don't make engineering changes to a car to make it less fuel efficient, especially
Right.
by 2 miles per gallon. So what about all those other model years?
Are
what
they
about
right?
15, 14, 13, 12, 11?
Are they right? I mean, the 2016 models did not get a horsepower increase. They don't weigh anymore. They don't have any performance changes. So it's very hard to believe that just those models in the last year suddenly got 2 miles per gallon worse. So what about the earlier ones? And then beyond that, what about people who have purchased vehicles with a window sticker that says 18 miles per gallon? They've advertised the fuel economy of these vehicles. And then lo and behold, it wasn't getting that at all.
Yeah, because the thing is,
we've
this,
been there before. There was a Hyundai thing a few years ago, and they actually paid the money for that difference.
The latest news, as of right now, yesterday of this taping, they are going to compensate the owners who already purchased the vehicles, the 2016 models, who purchased these vehicles thinking one fuel economy, getting another.
the problem is they've sold well over 1 million of these SUVs over the years. The car has a reputation of not getting the fuel economy on the sticker.
So-
I rented a Buick Enclave last week on vacation, a front drive one. That thing barely got 20 miles per
And
gallon.
every time we tested 4 of these versions over the years,
Yeah.
and they all got 16
They were never
and
better than
15 miles
15
per
or
So
16
gallon.
look, I
miles
mean,
per gallon.
our fuel economy test is different, certainly than the EPA testing, but it certainly is an indication. Because normally our fuel economy is very similar to the EPA numbers. When one really stands out like this one does, it is cause for concern. But the issue is the compensation. So they've already said that they're going to compensate owners who bought the 2016 models. And there's a precedent that's set with Hyundai and Ford. If someone buys the car and they think they're going to get this and then they get that, they're going to get refunded.
Sure.
But the problem is that may be maybe 100,000 vehicles. The issue is that they have sold about 2 million of these vehicles over 10 years. And if you consider how much these people have driven these cars, approximately 5 years each, you could do the math, you get 2 million vehicles. Over 5 years, you're basically spending another $1,000 worth of fuel. That's $2 billion.
Right. That
So,
people didn't expect to have to spend.
$2 billion that people did not expect to, again, assuming that all these cars get 2 miles per gallon worse, that's $2 billion these people have spent collectively spent on fuel costs.
So we'll see if GM winds up compensating people for that, because there seems to be a disconnect.
Well,
in-
right
in
now they're
EPA
saying that
numbers
those numbers are right. So, I understand the resistance. We'll have to see what happens.
We'll see. Meanwhile, moving forward, there is a 2017 Acadia, which is 700 pounds less, lots of inches shorter.
We just don't
doing
know
quick
how many
math,
miles
7
per
inches
gallon
shorter.
better.
Well, I drove a Press Acadia Denali last night. It was getting 24 pretty easily.
Yeah, on my commute it also got
Yeah.
about 22, 23.
It's considerably improved, but it's also a considerably smaller car, isn't it?
Right.
Now, why? Why is it smaller?
Well, the older ones were always those tweeners. They were larger than the rest of the competition, larger than the Honda Pilot and Toyota Highlander, and now they're like right-sized. So they're like in line with the competition. And the car is, is fine.
It's competent.
It's competent, it's competitive, but I expected a little more, there's no 8-speed automatic there. There's nothing really stands out in terms of a leap forward there. It's just where it needs to be.
And that's the thing. The previous Acadias and that whole platform. It was a bit of a surprise, especially for when it came out. This was a SUV that offered minivan-like interior accommodations, which is why I rented an Enclave. I had to haul 7 adults, and they fit. You can't do that now in a new Acadia. It is smaller. It is like a Highlander or a Pilot now that has a third-row seat just for kids. But those previous products were this revolution. This is sort of a me too. I have to have parity with the rest of the market and provide a product that's very similar to these other cars.
For the time, they gave you the functionality basically of a Suburban without driving a huge truck.
Right.
And
Well,
now they're you
I
know,
mean, when they
mainstream.
came out, let's not forget, I mean, that's when they killed their minivan. So they had a minivan. This product
They have a
basically.
horrible minivan.
Well, they did, but this product basically replaced their minivan, and that was the thinking. But GM has always had this problem with these tweeners. I mean, we keep on saying tweeners. The problem is that they're not competing head on with these heart of the competition.
They
They
straddle
just
two
threw out their
categories.
entire product line.
All right, there is still nothing that is the same size of a RAV4, a Forester, or a Honda CR-V.
Look what's going on with Cadillac. You know, they've got something between the 5 and the 7 series. They got something between the 3 and the 5 series. People want to buy a C-Class Mercedes-Benz or they want to buy a 3 series. Well, do I get the C or do they get the 1 series? I mean, they got to hit the core of the market because that's how people are car shopping.
That's right. I
these
mean,
cars.
we just bought a CT6, and price-wise, it's about the same as an A6 or a 5 Series. Size-wise, it's not quite the size of a 7 Series or an
Yeah,
S-Class.
it's the same
So it's
situation. It straddles two categories.
So it's like they say they're trying to break the habit of tweeners, but they're having a hard time in Cadillac. But it looks like they did it at least with SUVs. You know, with the Acadia.
Yeah.
with one SUV.
Well, with one SUV. Well,
And they're on the way to do it. I mean, future plans, they'll have a RAV4 size SUV.
right. So yeah, it's a product that GM needed to make, and it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's going to be popular. A lot of families are going to like it.
The issue is that, again, you know, with that market, the Highlander size vehicle, and like we talk about the RAV4, I mean, those are such mature products right now because everyone else has been making cars that size for so long.
Yeah.
It's very, very competitive. And there's so many good choices. I mean, even, you know, we even talk about the Kia, you know, the Kia
Sorento.
I mean, which nobody seems to know that exists, but it's such a really, really competitive product, and there's so many good things going for it. So it's not just being in the market. You got to go and be better than Kia too.
Right. There's a lot of competition there.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Talking Cars. As always, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.